And as we mentioned today, Vice President Harris is campaigning in battleground Pennsylvania, where she just wrapped up remarks focused on her economic vision for the country as she looks to chip away at Donald Trump's advantage on what voters say is their top issue. Harris telling the crowd she understands work still needs to be done.
Let's be clear. For all these positive steps, the cost of living in America is still just too high. You know it, and I know it. I intend to chart a new way forward and grow America's middle class. Donald Trump intends to take America backward to the failed policies of the past. He has no intention to grow our middle class.
Now, our latest NBC News poll shows inflation and cost of living voters' top concerns heading into November, while other economic issues rate within the top 5. And voters give Trump the advantage on those issues by 8 and 9 points, respectively. But that advantage is significantly less than when President Biden was still in the race, when Trump led Biden by 22 points on dealing with the economy. Let's bring in NBC News White House correspondent Mike Memoli, and also with us for some analysis is NBC News chief political analyst Chuck Todd. Mike Memoli set the stage for us here because the big question was, would the vice president roll out any new policy specifics? So did she?
Kristen, this is an interesting speech. I don't know if some wires got crossed in the rollout or what, because what she did do today was give what we might call a framing speech. She really tried to contrast herself with Donald Trump in terms of what is inspiring the policy decisions she will make, the kind of policy she will roll out, how she looks at the economy versus Donald Trump. She talked about really being on the side of those who are mopping the floors and cleaning a skyscraper rather than those who own it. It sounds a lot like a framing speech, frankly, President Biden gave earlier this year in Scranton, where he talked about a philosophy of Park Avenue versus Main Street, Mar-a-Lago versus Scranton. And so what we didn't hear was anything in the form of new policy today. I think it's clear what the Harris campaign is trying to do. They are trying to, as she did at the beginning of the speech, take credit for the economic successes that have happened, in their view at least, under the Biden administration. She talked about through the last 3 years what we have done, and then try to at least temperamentally or give a nod to being somewhat different than a conventional Democrat, or at least the caricature of a Democrat that the Republicans would like to portray. She talked about being pragmatic throughout her speech as well. But to the extent that this was billed as something of a policy speech, I don't think it hit that mark.
So interesting, Mike, because we had all been given guidance that it was going to do exactly that, to hit that mark. Chuck, let me go to you on this. We're going to get to your column in 1 second, but can we just get your gut reaction to this from a strategy perspective? Here we are 6 weeks from the election, Chuck. We had all been given guidance. This was going to be a speech focused on the economy. We're going to hear more about her economic vision. And so, yes, the assumption was there would be new policies. Is this smart strategy to not get specific, or does she need to put some meat on the bones here?
Look, I understand the reticence about being too specific, about making it about her too much and giving the Trump campaign something tangible to go after. At the same time, there are a couple things she's for that, you know, I'm surprised they're just not leaning into and making it, you know, something that she plans to make her signature issue. And that's the child care tax credit. And whether you call it a home care tax credit, which I think is what it eventually will be. But you've got, you know, we're going to get a new entitlement in this country in the next 4 years. This is something that we've heard elements in both parties be supportive of. It seems to be the easiest place for her to hang her hat and do, and it is just it's been surprising to me that that item in particular, which I think is tangible to people, is something that did get to them temporarily, isn't something she's making her North Star.
It's a great point, Chuck, and we have heard some specifics, but again, I think there was a lot of eagerness to talk about things like the child tax credit, exactly as you're saying. Let's get to your column from this week. Let me read everyone a little bit of what you say this week. Quote, what the country is sour on is Biden's economy. Biden's Vice President Kamala Harris was not a popular figure, but many voters have seen Vice President Kamala Harris as a fresher candidate, including those who previously viewed Trump as a better steward of the economy. Is that, do you think, the way to explain essentially why Harris has seen some progress so far,
Right.
and could it be stalled? That's the question you're asking overall.
Well, look, and I maybe I was too subtle. I mean, I probably should have put the words Biden in bold and italics. The point is, Biden's brand is unpopular. Hard stop. So, one of the best explanations for Kamala Harris's turnaround on her personal ratings, on the economy, is that she went from being Biden's vice president, and anything Biden is unpopular. Bidenomics. Why do you think Donald Trump was out there going, Joe is Kamala, Kamala is Joe, right? They know this. The polls say this. Biden, the brand name, is unpopular. If you put it in front of the economy or you put it in front of foreign policy, you put it in front of anything, and it's not going to be popular. So this is the line she's got to walk, right? And on one hand, I think that hey, this is a healing economy, and I'm surprised they haven't leaned in on the idea that, this is the third straight time that a Democratic president inherited a recessionary economy from a Republican president. There are ways that this could be framed better. I do think for all the good things they've done on tone and tenor with their messaging, I do think they've totally whiffed here on their framing of the economy. Look, I think the Biden folks were worse at it. The Harris folks at least have the tone and tenor right on this, but I really think they keep whiffing here on the economy. They're too afraid of it. They're afraid of the issue. That's what it comes across. They fear it so much they try to play patty cake with it. With her saying the words pragmatic rather than saying, hey, we inherited a mess. It is so much better today, and it isn't as good as it should be. And then, being a little forward-leaning on it.
Let me follow up with you on that very point, because the question I think everyone is asking is, at some point, Chuck, does she need to really separate herself from Biden? We have not seen her do that yet. We were just showing video of former President Bill Clinton. It makes me think of Al Gore running when he did, in fact, separate himself. Obviously, the issues were vastly different, but it was an example of someone running for office realizing, or at least making the calculation back then, that was the better choice. But we're not seeing that with Harris.
Well, I don't know who on the Harris campaign convinced the White House to do a massive foreign trip in October, but they ought to be given a raise. I do think, normally those big foreign trips, those sort of fond farewell trips, are after the election. I noticed this one's going to be in October. It's exactly the way the Harris people would want it. Get the president out of the country, right? Out of sight, out of mind. We're going to find out whether she's going to need to. All right. The Trump campaign is heavily running this hit on Bidenomics, where she says it, right? I think if she starts taking on water, they should. I think the border's an interesting place to do it, and I think would make the most sense to separate there.
Yeah, no doubt that is one of the biggest pressure points for her. Chuck, as always, great to see you. I know it's a busy day. Thanks for taking the time. Appreciate it. See you soon. Bye-bye.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app, or follow us on social media.